Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 663, recorded the weekend of January 8th. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have returning to the show, Arkat.
Good afternoon, everybody.
And we have Vooduspyce.
Hey, everyone.
And we have Viamel.
Hello.
Welcome. This should be a fun show. We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can catch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, iTunes, or from our website at DDOcast.com. DDOcast is hosted by CyberEars, the awesome podcast hosting network, and shows are usually available within a few days of recording. Next show will probably be next week, and you can stay updated by following us on our social media pages or our website, DDOcast.com, with our calendar. On the podcast this week, we're going to do our review show for Update 51 and for Update 52, because we haven't done either of those. We wanted to give Update 51 a little bit more time before we reviewed it, just because it was a big update, and Epic's just fundamentally changed with the Epic Destiny Revamp, so we wanted to let that one marinate a little bit more. And then, of course, Update 52, was like a month between Update 51 and 52 or so.
Yeah.
So we've had about 2 months with Update 51, so we feel pretty good about reviewing that. And that's kind of where we're going. There is no new screenshot of the week this week. There's also no new Chronicle, because SSG and Cordovan are kind of coming back from the holidays stuff.
That's a really crappy excuse.
I mean, the guy gets like 4 screenshots a week, maybe. So...
Yeah, so how hard would it have been to pick one?
I don't know.
Everyone needs a holiday. Whatever.
Yeah. Any case, we'll cover what little game news there is, which there's not really a lot. The big thing is there was this coupon code that gives you all of the adventure packs free. And it was supposed to end sometime on December 31st. My understanding was it was supposed to be automated to end at midnight Eastern on the 31st. So apparently it ended a little earlier than that, as well as the coupon code for the 15th anniversary cloak. So now it appears that the bonus days this week is they turned those codes back on. So through January 13th, 11:59 p.m. Eastern, you can still use the coupon code DDOQuest 2021 to get all of the currently available adventure packs for free. You can also use the coupon code HAPPY15DDO to get the 15th anniversary gifts. If you've already used these coupon codes, they will not be redeemable again. So, if you haven't used these codes, and you didn't start playing in the last 8 days, go put those in right now. If you haven't put those codes in, and you've been playing longer than, 14 days, why the hell haven't you put these codes in? Go put these codes in.
Huge.
And go get your Epic Litany of the Dead so you can change it into an augment.
No,
Yeah.
Get the Hero Quiver of Alacrity.
Honestly, even if you're a VIP or you think you own all the content, put the DDO quests into your main account because you're probably missing a pack or something.
Yeah,
It'll be worth it.
Well, if you stop being a VIP, which was the discussion of our show last week, this code will apply all of those adventure packs to you. So
Yeah, don't miss it just because you think you have the content. Right.
Put the code in. Unless you can find the email that says you put this code in, put the code in. And then
Doesn't
put it
hurt
again. Right, yeah, exactly.
And get yourself a quiver of alacrity.
Oh, we've got 2 for the quiver of alacrity.
It's the best one. You can go farm a Sword of Shadows in an afternoon if you got a bit of tenacity and some raid bypass timers. Getting a quiver is a pain, and get a quiver.
Yeah, you're not wrong. The quiver is harder to get than probably any of the... I can't remember what all's on that list, but that's definitely one of the harder ones to get. And, it gives you striding 30 at level 1. That's pretty nice. Although I will say it's not super hard to get a decent striding low-level item.
No, it's
So,
not. It's just the convenience is
yes.
amazing.
Having
Yeah,
it on
and
your quiver is great.
It takes a quiver. Yeah, it takes the quiver spot. It's a really good item to have.
Mm-hmm. It really is.
If you don't know what item to take, there's my video and I go over all of them and my recommendations.
In our live chat. Yeah. So there's lots of options. Yeah. There you go. I would say that the quiver is a solid choice. I think the first time around I took some ear dwellers because I found that to be a pain in the ass to get, and I wasn't super concerned about the striding. I also have like this really old legacy expeditious retreat clicky, which gives you 25% striding, which I find to be more than sufficient at lower levels. So
There's a 3-charge expeditious retreat clicky in Borderlands that you can get if you somehow miss getting the quiver or you don't want it.
there you go. Or you want something else. There's options. So
I do agree that Epic Litany that it is a solid choice. That's my second top one.
Let's see. Also, this week, coins. The festival coins are appearing through January 9th. So you have through tomorrow to collect your coins. The Jester will stick around through January 16th. As we have just learned with coupon codes and stuff, look, don't wait to the last minute to turn the stuff in, if at all possible, right? Like, look, if you're out of town and you're flying home on the 16th and you're gonna try and hard to get the coins in, sure. But just like, don't wait till the last minute, please, for us. Go turn them in.
Well, it isn't like the coins go away or anything. I mean,
true.
You can turn them in next year if you want.
Probably this summer. I feel like they do a quick coin thing in the summer.
Here's the thing: if you're on Kyber and you don't want to clog up your inventory, just give your coins to someone else because someone wants them. I want them.
There you go.
Your coins are
Someone
wanted.
wants
Yeah, that's true.
Also, the really big cookie jar is not super expensive. It's kind of worth having.
Yeah, it's true. At least it's a lot easier to turn those things in these days too, because they have the barter UI. That didn't used to be a thing. You used to have to like click them individually each time.
Oh yeah.
And that was oof and oof. But it's much better now. You just like turn it on and go. I will tell you, especially with the copper coins, because you turn them in at 3 at a time, and they only stack to 100 in the shared bank. So what happens is for every one of those stacks, it will leave 1 in the stack. So you have to go and pull the individual ones out to restack them into a consolidated thing. So turn all your coins in, then go to the crafting bank, pull them all out, put them back in, and then go turn them in. Okay. At least for the coppers. Silvers, that's usually less of an issue because they stack up to 100 and you turn them in 2 at a time, so they're even, right? But yeah, so pro tips there with some of that stuff. There was, just kind of mention that there was an issue with logins this morning for I think about an hour, maybe an hour and a half.
No, it's longer than that. It was like 2 or 3 hours. Yeah.
Okay.
What you saw was the first post that Cordovan posted. And then in about an hour after that, it was fixed, but it was broken for like a couple hours before that.
They're saying 5 hours in the chat now. So
okay, there you
it's
go.
Possible that they'll extend the coins and things. We'll see. We'll see if they get extended. This is not an event where they have to turn the servers off to do it. Although that is kind of typically what they do. So they might wait until they do it. But also, they're not going to turn them off on a Sunday. That almost never happens if they turn things off on a Sunday. So they'll actually still be on a little bit longer that Monday. So I don't know what'll happen there. They might extend it a little bit. There's a question in the chat. Is there anything you can do with twigs? No. I think is the
Yes,
answer.
if you drag them out of your inventory, that gives you this little interaction, and you can press yes, destroy. That's what you can do with things.
You can also mail them to Viamel on Kyber.
Jesus, someone's gonna do that now, BJ.
Viamel.
See, this is why you have longer names that are harder to spell, so people can't do that to you.
This is why I started playing alts recently.
Anyways, so make sure you turn in your coins and stuff. There were some old recipe things you could do in the Winter Festival, which I don't expect to come back. I think that's been retired in favor of the new festival, the Snow Peaks Festival. But they might add something. I don't know. But currently, there's not any reason to hang on to them. And even when they were around, I don't even remember what they gave you, but it wasn't that big a deal. So I wouldn't worry about them. Throw the twigs away. Let's see. Store sales. So the sales for the week: Monster Madness, 25% off of select monster manuals, Slayer boosts, select pet certificates and tricks, and companion and pet renames. Through January 13th. The coupon code is 5 free lasting heroism potions. The coupon code is Need a Hero. Let's see. I think that pretty much covers all of the news. Like I said, there's no Chronicle this week. Not really even enough to have community news other than to, hey, go check out Vooduspyce's channels and YouTubes and all that fun stuff. Hey, you're doing teaching raids again, right?
Yes, just started today.
Yeah, plug that a little bit.
Legendary Shroud bugged out on us twice. We had to restart it and do it 3 times. So if you're on Sarlona, we're doing teaching raids for new players, or for folks who are brand new to raids, or you're new to the raid that we're doing, or maybe you're a long-time veteran, you just never got into raiding, or maybe you're a returning player and you just missed some raids while you were gone. We teach raids every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern throughout the winter and spring. I post details every week in the Sarlona forum. We live stream on the DDO stream, so if you're not on Sarlona, you can watch them there, or you can make an iconic tune on Sarlona even, and you get flagged for raids, join us there. And some people are even transferring their hardcore 5 tunes over to Sarlona just to join our teaching raids. So it's a great place to learn raids. I can't emphasize enough that you don't have to be anybody special to raid. Raiding is not for some elite sect of the community. Everybody can raid in DDO. So now is a great time to learn.
Yep. And I think you have like several years worth of videos of the teaching raids too. Like, so if you don't want to wait to for when they get to whichever raid you want to learn about, I'm pretty sure you've got videos on that on your
I have
YouTube,
teaching
right?
raid videos for every raid in the game on my YouTube channel.
There you go. Yeah, get into raiding. Raiding is fun. I think everyone here likes to raid.
Yes.
And they're not as hard as they sound. I think a lot of people get scared of them. Aside from too hot to handle.
That's so much easier than it used to be.
It's true.
That's true.
After the balance, it's night and day.
Yeah.
Actually, last week we got a sort of semi-pug group to complete Elite 2 Hot, which was
Wow.
quite something,
Yeah.
I must say.
Yeah.
And we've been doing hard fairly regularly, which has just been good. Can I
time.
take this second to plug the Jungles of Kyber Discord channel?
Sure.
If you're on the Kyber server, is it okay if I check a link in chat?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if you're on the Kyber server, this is our server-wide channel, and we've been using this for voice for pug raids and stuff. So hop in, bunch of good builds in the build repository there, and you can ask for advice and stuff. It's a good Discord channel.
Even if you're not on Kyber and you want to find some more community and more build ideas, I don't think anyone's going to cross-check or anything like that. So
I don't think there's any vetting for what server you're coming from.
There should be.
I mean,
people.
Nobody from Solanas.
Here's what you have against Destinies.
I just picked one out of thin air. I could have just as easily said Wayfinder.
You should have gone with Sarlona. That would have been.
Eh.
Anyways, yeah. So there you go. All right. we're gonna review update 51. That's gonna be kind of the big part of our show here. Like I said, we haven't done this yet because we wanted to give a little bit more time than we normally. Usually, we review an update after about a month. That's kind of usually when we review a show or an update. There's usually some quests, some changes, maybe a new thing here or there. This was a big change. Update 51. I'm trying to think. Like, was there like update the Monas Underdark expansion? Maybe was about as big, if not bigger, of an update. But I'm not sure if I can think of one that had a bigger impact in the end, at least the end game section of the game at once.
Ravenloft. Ravenloft with all those really super high stat items.
Okay.
The thing is, like, Ravenloft didn't really change the systems of the game. It just changed what loot you're using. But as a systems update, I think the only thing that really compares is update 19 and the previous Epic Destinies update.
Yeah. So this was a big change. And just to kind of recap what Update 51 was a complete overhaul of Epic Destinies. So you used to be in one Epic Destiny, and you had these things called twists that you could pull a couple abilities from other Destinies in. Now it functions pretty much like the heroic enhancement trees, the Reaper tree. Like they were tree oriented, but now you can have multiple trees active, spending points in them. It doesn't carry over life to life. You have to reinvest in the trees and rebuild up your points every life, aside from the ones that you kind of start off with from Destiny points and Fate points and that kind of a thing. This was a big change. So that's why we kind of let it go for a little bit. Also with that is there was a big rescaling of monsters, which we kind of alluded to when we were talking about Too Hot. So there's kind of a lot to unpack there. We probably won't get into like specific tree by tree analysis, but we'll definitely be talking about some of those trees as we go. To start, I think the best place is to let's start by looking at how do we feel about the framework of how Epic Destinies work now? The tree structure, the UI layout, point system, level gating. How do we feel about how that is working?
I'm fine with it. I mean, I like the multiple trees possibilities. Some of the powers and whatnot in the trees themselves are somewhat weaker, like meld, etc. But overall, I like it, and I understand the level gating, and I'm fine with that as well. I just really would like to see the final 2 or 3 cores, but obviously that's going to wait until the level cap increases.
I really like the tree framework. I think it makes knowing what's in other Destinies a little bit more intuitive. I still wish that we had access to like a viewer tree where we could, even if we can't spend in it, could see
That's one of
see
my
the
gripes.
yeah, it's really frustrating. I gotta have the builder open and up to date if I want to be looking at how the trees work. But other than that, like for when you've sort of selected your trees, it's really nice. And I like this system much more than the Twists of Fate thing because it feels more balanced to me. And the level gating is actually really fun. It makes leveling up in epics feel like you're doing something instead of feeling like it's the same thing for 10 levels.
I want to counterpoint.
Oh, go for it.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you
Okay. So overall, I think I like the system. I'm glad that they, the old Epic Destiny system, I think definitely needed work. And so I'm glad that we got what we got. I hope they continue to improve upon it. So as far as Twists of Fate go, I miss them. I suspected I would beforehand. Now after playing it, I definitely do. And this is the reason, because I'm finding, even though we can be in 3 trees, that I'm so deeply invested into like my primary tree that all I can get is some like low-hanging fruit out of the other 2, and it's only out of 2. Whereas if I had 5 Twists of Fate, I could pull up to tier 4 stuff from any other tree instead of just low-hanging fruit from 2 trees. So some people have countered that and said, well, we're going to get more points in the future. Okay, that's cool. I still think that the ability to get twists from any tree is pretty cool, so I miss that. I'm not saying I want to go back to the old system. I'm just saying I really do miss Twists of Fate. There was a lot of flexibility there. Like VML was saying, they need to add it so we can look at the Destinies that aren't active, because I just want to do some window shopping, read through them. I'm still trying to learn the system myself. You know, I'm not a pro at the new system. I need to read through this stuff, and it's very inconvenient to do that. You literally have to reset a tree to look at some other tree, and that needs to change.
I like the window shopping idea. That's a nice one.
I also don't like that. Okay, so we got these trees, okay, which I'm not a big fan of, but if we want to do them, fine, I'm okay. But if we're gonna have dual trees, then let's have more in those trees that support both playstyles. So, you know, again, I'm not a big fan that like Shadow Dancer can't decide if it wants to be a rogue tree or a caster tree. But if we're gonna do it, let's do it. Instead of having some abilities in those trees like Shirati Champion that just supports ranged. If I'm a caster in Shirati, because that's like a ranged caster tree, I don't care about the range stuff. Or if I'm a ranged in Shirati, I don't care about the caster stuff. So like everything in that tree, or at least most of the stuff, should support both of those playstyles if you want to make them dual trees. Now, I'm actually playing a Shirati Magic Missile Spammer now because I heard it was pretty cool after the Epic Destiny changes, and it is. But I was frustrated that to get up to tier 5, I had to spend like 6 points in stuff that I didn't even want just to get up to tier 5. So since we can only be in one tier 5 at a time, maybe not require us spend 30 points or something, or put more stuff in the tree that I'm going to want in those dual trees, make them truly support both of those playstyles more.
I generally agree with what you said. I think that the thing that's nice about these dual trees, though, is that they can support proper hybrid builds. And just yesterday, I saw a player playing a true hybrid melee thrower caster that was working functionally in R10s. Like, that's really cool to me, and I think that that's not possible without these dual trees that let you get those DCs that you need for your spells and let you get the melee power and the damage that you need for your damage output. So I think that mix there is really cool.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I can more accurately describe how much I hate we'll get more points when we get more levels argument.
Because it's not the game we're playing right now.
1, it's not the game we're playing right now. 2, when we get those more levels, it doesn't change the current levels. If you give me more points at level 31, 32, 33, and 34, that doesn't change my play experience from level 20 to 29. It's the same play experience. And I still find that everyone that I've talked to that has the same kind of opinion on that, I miss the twist that Voodoo is talking about. It always comes back to me of there's not enough points to have the versatility that I was sold on in the system. I know I've talked about this ad nauseum, but the number of points you have relative to the point gating, not the level gating, but the point gating to move vertically in the tree, that's where the system breaks down for me a little bit. Not to say that I don't think it's a better system. I do think we have a better system right now, especially if you're talking about a new player or a character that hasn't had time to level up all of the Destinies and all of that stuff, and not having, and being able to be in whatever Destiny combination you want. You don't have to worry about karma. There are some really great things about this system, but I still am stuck on the how expensive to have to spend 30 points to get to tier 5. I think is too expensive for the number of points you have at that point.
Plus, if you're leveling from 20 to 30, you don't start with enough ED points. I sort of have the same issue with heroic leveling. Like when you start at level 1, it's boring that you don't have more points to play with from earlier on, because then you can give your class and build a bit more of its flavor that it's meant to have from the get-go, whereas you sort of start out without an identity at level 1 until you've been able to spend some points. And I think that whole system could be reshuffled where you're working with the same amount of points, but you get more of them at the start, and then you can feel like you're more of the build that you set out to play from earlier.
I mean, I would say that the system, either you need more points and you should definitely put them at the start, or moving vertically should cost less. I mean, I think if tier 5 was 20 points, or even 25 points, like if each tier was 5 points less, I think that would still make a huge difference in what you can spend. I don't think the issue is how many points we have. I think it's the cost verticality. That's where I think the system has its biggest issue for me. I've a few more points here and there, and I'll talk about something system here in a second, which would actually probably give you a few more points. But I think that's the biggest miss for me, is that it just doesn't, that versatility doesn't feel like it's there, because by the time I get into tier 5, I either don't have a lot of stuff to spend in tier 5, or I don't have a lot of stuff to spend in my second tree, let alone, like, my TR build's only using 2 trees. I just don't have enough points to put into a third tree that's really worth it. I'd like to, but it's, I mean, now, again, part of that is because of what I'm running, which is mostly an Acid Alchemist, and there's not something that I found that works really well for that third tree. That works better than what I'm doing with my points already. That's part of it. And that's not a system thing, and I don't even think that's an issue per se. But that's where I constantly run into the system and butting with the system.
It should be really valid to even spend only in one tree, and it just isn't.
Yeah.
I want to put an asterisk on what you just said, Patrick, and or qualify it with that. You know, like, I have all possible past lives to give me more points, and I'm still feeling that way. And I'm guessing you probably have a bunch of extra points. So even with all those extra points, I'm still feeling like that. I'm still feeling that limitation that you're describing.
And you know, the thing about that's kind of funny with having that experience is my one character that has all of the points is a tank. And of all of the characters I play, he's the one that I don't feel like I need to go heavy into these other trees, because they're not going to give me as much as like my primary tank tree. But it still feels like, man, if 2 or 3 more points would be so amazing. And again, I don't think the answer is here's 30 more points. I think the answer to this is still reduce the cost to move vertically. Not the level gating, although tier 5 being level 30 still bugs me. I don't understand why it's 29. And I think Linaball actually said something to the effect of, it'll make more sense why it's level 30 when you get beyond 30. To which I'm like, so you design, like designing for future development, cool, that's fine. But we're not there yet, and you're trying to sell me it on this, and you won't tell me why it works. Like, you're not.
I do prefer that line coming from the devs who know how a system is going to pan out, compared to coming from players who are like, don't worry about it, we'll have more points. Because, like, you don't know how it's going to look. But when the devs do, it's like, okay, fine, you are actually designing this, maybe it'll be okay.
Yeah.
Another thing they could do to help that would help just a little bit in this regard, is uncouple more stuff in those trees. There are some things that, like, you have to buy this to get the next one, and it's like, I don't want this middle thing. It has nothing to do with anything.
I actually found that there was a lot less of that. Like, my experience with the new stuff, the new trees, is there's very little of that coupling and progression.
Actually, like, one spot where you could see it happening very easily, but it doesn't happen, is in Shadow Dancer. You've got the Shadow Strike, and then you've got the upgrades for the Shadow Strikes, and then you've got the secondary upgrades, and those could be linked, but they're not. And what that means is that you can take Dark Imbuement without taking Shadow Strike if you don't want to spend the points on it, or you're not going to use that Epic Strike, and you can still proc Dark Imbuement in other ways, which is really cool.
The thing that comes to mind for me is in Unyielding Sentinel Knight's Challenge. There's an upgrade for Knight's Challenge, but it's connected by something in the middle that like gives you extra hit points and has nothing to do with Knight's Challenge. Why do I need extra hit points to get the upgrade to Knight's Challenge?
Well, as a tank, I do like extra hit points. I'm just saying.
I do, but I would like the option to not buy the
Sure.
30 extra hit points or something.
The one that really worked.
I agree with you in principle, for sure.
The one place where it really makes sense is in Primal Avatar, because there's this. It's laid out kind of weird, like it's a. What's
The
the
go sideways thing?
Yeah,
Go sideways then go up.
it's the weird Tetris-y. It's like a Tetris piece instead of a vertical one, but it's all building off of the same ability, so it makes sense why they're linked, right? Like if you took this one, it wouldn't do anything. You didn't take the one before it because you wouldn't have the ability. Like, what's the point? But so that would be kind of weird. Has any VMO? Were you? I think Arkat or Voodoo were really on hardcore, and I haven't been on hardcore this season, but. Were you on hardcore this season, VMO?
Not into epics. I just played in heroics a bit, and then I got bored. I actually managed to not die.
What'd you say, Voodoo?
I'm sorry. I did the 5K run on hardcore this season.
Oh, did you? Did you get into epics?
No.
Okay. Unfortunate. The hardcore was kind of the one place I was really curious to see how the new Epic Destinies were going to play out, and I just couldn't get motivated to go after the rewards I already had this year. But I think hardcore is where especially veteran players like ourselves are going to see more of an interesting change in terms of how you level up Destinies, because you don't have to, like, you can just go, right? You don't have to farm out all these Destinies to make this character really good and utilize the Epic Destiny system super well, like you did in previous seasons.
Yeah.
And people did in previous seasons. This time, you can just go up. Like, you can still do Epic Lives to get more points, sure, but it's like most of the system you're already there. You don't have to do a lot of
the
work.
system is so much nicer, and I've actually been recently putting together a few ults. I made a first life tank that can handle R10s and R1 rating, and the fact that you don't have to fill out your destinies is huge. Like, it makes the whole experience of putting together an ult so much nicer. Like, yeah, you don't have as many points, and that is actually really frustrating.
It is.
But it is really nice that you can play with the same systems that everyone else is playing with without doing this huge hurdle first for no reason. And I'm a big fan of that change.
Yeah, Tough in the live chat is saying that he leveled to 30 on hardcore and it was super enjoyable. That's good to hear. Like, that, I thought that might be a place where it really worked really well. See, the other thing that I kind of want to harp on a little bit, and then I should probably talk about some positives to the system, is the Fate Point, Destiny Point translation still bugs the crap out of me.
It doesn't make any sense.
And I'm pretty sure I understand the reason why they did that was because they had Fate Tomes and Tomes of Destiny, and they needed them both to be a thing, and to be different things. Now that we have a Tome of Destiny Historic and a Tome of Destiny Feywild, that whole argument for me is gone. Like, you've undercut that argument. Fate points should be what you spend in your Destinies. Like, if you need to give us fewer Fate points, that's fine. But I don't, like, the Fate point to Destiny point conversion is unnecessary. Just give, like, Tomes of Fate, we've got +3, make those, I don't know, standard. Turn the Destiny ones into Tomes of Fate Historic and Tomes of Fate Feywild, fine. You give us 2 more points to spend in trees if you rejigger the rest of the math. Like, I see no problem here.
I mean, you can rejig the whole system to give us the same amount of points from all I care. The thing that's irritating is that you have this weird conversion system that isn't brought up anywhere else, because when we had Twist of Fate, then it made sense because you actually used your Fate points as a spending tool. But you can't really see your Fate points properly anywhere.
Yeah.
Doesn't really make sense. And that system isn't explained except in a big chunk of wall of text in the spheres. It's awful, and it doesn't make any sense. Please change.
Also, Fate points sound better than Destiny points anyways, so, like, It just wish it hasn't been here that long. Rip the Band-Aid off and fix it. Fix it now. We can fix it. It would be better. So
Also, like every few days in the DDO Discord, someone's asking about how the fate point system works.
Well, people
Not
still ask
exactly
about
nuclear
stacking,
accessible.
so yeah.
yeah, right. Stacking the curse of Dungeons and Dragons mathdom. Yeah, it is. Having said those things, I do like this system overall better than the previous system. I do kind of miss some of the UI, like the sphere UI thing that they had. I think that they should just bring that back, just so you could look at them, in like a paper space. I think that would be amazing. I love that idea. I hope someone's listening and they will do that, for us. Some other things with it that I like that how they kind of jiggered the system. I do like the feat tie-ins. I don't know that very many of them are very compelling, but I like
Some
that
of
they're
them
there.
really are, though. Some of them are really like,
Sure.
build defining, and it's cool.
I literally took Luck of Heroes for the first time in 12 years because of I can get now +6 luck bonus to all my saves instead of +3, and then Luck of Heroes is another one, so +7 luck bonus to all my saves. Hell yeah!
Sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Look at that.
And then,
I
of
like
course-
that it's there.
Then of course there's the one in Grandmaster of Flowers where if you take the discipline feat, you get instead of +5 MRR and PRR, you get +10 MRR and PRR with 2 of the 3 cores.
Yep.
Yeah, I really like the tie-ins. I think that some of them, I'm thinking specifically of Harbinger of Chaos, are too strong. Or like,
Mhm.
they're so strong that they feel like if you're going into this tree, you have to take this feat instead of if you're going into this tree, you can take this feat if you want and it will give your build a bit more flavor, a bit more direction to the way that you're building. Whereas this is just like, here's a heap of stats that are added to this one feat, which is completely disproportionate to any of the other feat
Right.
tie-ins to the trees.
I think
Exactly.
I'm just bitter that they left off Bulwark of Defense from a revamp or a tie-in.
What do you
Like-
mean? It gets a bunch of PRR.
Does it now? I don't remember.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
still there.
Tier 4 Sentinel gets a bunch of PRR for
Oh,
taking
that's right.
Bulwark. It's great. So tanks are taking that now, and it's cool.
The feat itself is still.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
itself is
feat
pretty meh.
itself sucks, yeah.
I wish they would have. I still want that feat to be a little different. Not a lot different, but I still want that feat to be better. But I do like that. I like how they evened out spell DCs in the trees. Although I think the consensus is that DCs are like 5 to 10 lower than they used to be.
DCs are lower, but stuff lost their epic
Right.
ward, which was saves. I think from a practical standpoint, DCs are in a really good spot where if you don't properly build for it, you're not landing your DCs in high-end content. In lower difficulty content, your DCs land pretty fine if you just sort of go for it a bit. And so I think that's actually the DC balance is in a really nice spot right now.
I was landing dancing balls last night with an 89 DC and Legendary Reaper 8s with 89 DC.
I take
I
back
was
what I
landing
said.
on most of the
Will saves
mobs.
need to go up.
Yeah. I mean,
So
it's-
yeah, our DCs
Well-
dropped, but so did the mob saves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but that's a will save, and historically will saves have always been lower than fort saves, so that sounds okay to me.
It depends on what you're fighting too, right? Like if you were trying to do that with Drow, you probably would have a different experience than
Yeah.
I don't know what you were fighting, but
it wasn't Knowles out of Sharn either. So
right.
I can't remember what we were doing, but it wasn't. Yeah.
I mean, in terms of just simple game balance, it makes sense that it's easier to make something dance than just kill it outright for free.
True. It's true. The other thing that I like how they kind of really did from a structure standpoint is a lot more uniformity of spell types. So the Scion feats are all much more uniform. Like they all give you 25% critical damage to their correct element or the associated element, and some for not that. Same with all the various spell power destiny feats, and all that
Yeah.
stuff. By the
I
way, I
really
like
like
the
the
new level
changes that they
progression
made.
on the destiny feats.
Yes.
Oh.
I really like the changes that they made to the spell power feats because now it
Mhm.
feels impactful to take those instead of just like 20 spell power out of 1,000 is not like it's not compelling. Like you would take it because you didn't have anything better to take, but not because it felt like a compelling choice. And now it feels like a compelling feat that you want to take for your build. And I think that that's a really nice change for that.
But also, you can be different elements, right? Like it's not like the decisions that you're making about am I going to be an ice stork or a fire stork are not based around what feats you can take.
Mm.
Or at least that's my perception.
Yes. Yeah, it was previously like Fire Sork has this huge leg up because everyone has to take Scion of Fire if they want to do nuking.
Right. And that's not true now. Now, having said that, there's still some winner. Like, if you're trying to be a DPS alchemist, like I don't know why you don't do acid or poison right now. Since that Scion feat gives you the right boost to DCs compared to the other ones.
Yeah, probably fine. Can
But-
I have a little cry though that all these feats have got their elemental damage procs, and there's no version for poison when you're doing melee, and that makes me sad.
Oh.
Like you get the 2d20 elemental, and where's the poison one, guys? Come on.
Yeah. That. Although I would say, I kind of say that the poison one. I kind of almost. I don't know if that. I'm trying to think how to say this. That doesn't feel like it should be a caster thing to me as much as it should be like a martial assassin-y kind of thing. I'm not saying it shouldn't be there. I'm just saying like it doesn't seem like that one should be a caster thing to me.
You're saying that they should nerf ethereal into the ground and make it poison damage instead of sneak attack dice.
No, I'm saying they could add the damage you're talking about into that feat. Not as a take it away thing, take something else away, but add that in. If you can add that in somewhere, that would make more sense to me. But that's because it's putting poison on your weapons, right? A little bit more of a D&D pen and papery background with that. So I'm not sure that it totally works with the game that we play. That's just kind of my perception of it. So
You know, Alchemist has their poison imbuement thing, and I just want synergy for that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Anything else we want to say about kind of the framework of the Destinies? Any of the feat changes? Any of that kind of stuff? All right. Let's talk about the monster scaling, which we've kind of alluded to a little bit. How does everyone feel about how powerful the monsters are relative to you?
Seems like they're dying faster, that's for sure. I've noticed
Yeah.
that. But it also feels like, I like to play tanks, so I feel like I'm kind of getting hit a little bit harder, it feels like, than before, but they are dying faster, so.
I think the fact that they're hitting harder is good because it makes tanks feel more relevant in that content. I think that they do feel they feel like they're dying too fast though. Like a Doom Reaper just shouldn't look like it's made of tissue paper when a couple of competent DPS go and smack it. That feels bad to me. But the fact that you need a tank, or at least like, not need a tank, but that it's a valuable asset is that's cool.
Yeah, last night we were doing Legendary Reaper 8 skulls with no tank and no healer with just 5 of us. And I can tell you that before the balance pass, I wouldn't have been doing R8s without a tank and healer. Yeah, that's me. That's where I am. I know some people would, but...
I would agree that I think my experience is that things die faster and I die faster. Both of those things seem to be true. And I am probably running about a skull or two higher than I used to.
Yeah.
Generally. There's a little bit of a variance in that still. Like I do still find Doom Reapers to be a little bit of a problem if you don't have someone who can take a hit or three. Not necessarily a tank, but someone with more hit points than a caster or like a
Someone chunky.
yeah. You need a little bit of beef to occupy the Doom Reaper while you kill it a little bit. As opposed to in before, like that was less of an issue because you could just meld your way out of everything. So that's a little bit of that experience, but I do find that stuff is dying
love
faster.
That Meld is gone. Meld being gone makes me so happy for the game. Same as Dire Charge being locked into a tree instead of being a feat that everyone has to take. It's so much more fun from a building perspective. But I guess that's the next thing that we're talking about.
Sort of. I mean, we can touch on that now. That's totally fine.
PJ, before we do that, I
Yeah.
just wanted to put my little 2 cents in regarding monster scaling.
Yes,
one
please.
of the things I noticed in Kasplat is that where we would do like 4 skulls, we've been consistently able to do 6 skulls,
Yeah.
and I think that's where I've noticed it.
Yeah, I would agree. And I'm not sure what the best answer is, but I think Reaper scaling, I think the baseline is actually pretty good, right? Like if you're an elite R1, normal hard stuff, like that's fine. I think the higher skulls is where things are off for me right now.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure what the best solution is at the moment because I'm actually pretty happy with how hard things hit.
Yeah.
I don't want the answer to make this content more difficult. Monsters just one-shot everybody, right? Like, that has never been challenging to me.
Yeah, it's not fun. It just changes the build meta. It doesn't actually make the game more challenging.
I'm also not sure that I want them to just add more hit points to everything, because everything being stacks of hit points, I think is also not necessarily fun.
That's boring. It's just boring to sit there and beat on something,
right?
For 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
I think some stuff could have more HP though. Like I think bruiser type enemies like Doom Reapers and those the enemy heavy frontline guys could have more HP and then keep like the casters and the rangers at about the same level. And then you've got a bit of variance in like what you can target for your big hits.
Yeah, I think that's a start. I think Reapers across the board, and this was true before the past too. Like I think Reapers generally needed more hit points. Maybe not Doom Reapers before, but definitely now. Like those I think need to be a little tougher.
If a Doom Reaper had twice as many hit points, it would be fine. And
maybe.
I think like Vengeance Reapers being a bit fragile is kind of fun because you got to play around them,
That's true. Like I do hope when they I think they need to relook at Reaper, which I think is kind of on the docket anyways. Yeah. But I think like looking at the Reaper toughness just in general would be a good place. Hey, while we're doing that, I would love it if Reapers would just drop the little crafting bits for you turn in a Reaper an item with a Reaper enhancement and you get a bit that you can then apply to Reaper enhancement something else. I would love it if just Reapers dropped them kind of like token fragments.
I love that idea.
Or scrolls.
But have them auto gather, please.
Sure,
Even if the drop chance for them was crazy low, just so it didn't feel like you were at the whims of the loot table.
Yeah. Well, also it would make it more meaningful to do stuff at higher levels, right, as opposed to farming low-level crap. Anyways, that aside.
Yeah, maybe if Dooms had a higher chance than other Reapers,
Absolutely.
Good.
Orange ones drop them a higher rate, reds drop higher. Perfect. I think Reaper needs more Reapers, for starters. Just, I think...
Yeah, like more variants of Reapers, you mean?
Yeah. And I've harped on this, too. Like, we've had the same base set of champions for so long. The Reapers are there. Like, I don't necessarily need them all to be in the wild at the same time, but change up the Reaper suites and the champion suites a little more often, just to like put some of that liveliness and change and variability in. Like I think that would add a lot to just play in general.
Yeah.
But I kind of wonder if some better solutions might be something along the lines of having Reaper also reduce like helpless damage, not just base damage, but how much extra damage you do to helpless stuff might be an option. I also wonder if Reaper mobs had kind of more of an ablative defense. Let's say like the first time you hit them, you do less damage, but the second time they get hit, they take more damage. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but it was just kind of something I was toying with in my head. Like, does this make the balance better and more fun, but not just like they hit harder or they have a whole bunch more hit points, right? Like, we need something that makes them tougher.
Well,
That's not
some
just those
Reapers
two things.
some of the Reapers work like this. So like the Famine Reaper, the longer you leave it up, the more dangerous it is. Like the Carnage Reaper, if it's wailing on you for too long, it makes you vulnerable and you take more damage.
Right.
The only problem with those is that they're essentially made of tissue paper up against real DPS players, where a competent DPS can make them vanish. It's almost like a magic trick. And I think that's like sure, those are top end players who are doing that, but they're doing it at the highest difficulty the game has to offer, so
Right.
it shouldn't really be happening. If they're doing that in R1, fine. Someone has chosen to do their relative easier difficulty. It makes sense that they can do it more easily. But if you're at the top end of the game of what the game can offer you, and if you go into a push raid and you see a Reaper, that's the least scary thing in the raid.
It's true. Yeah. Other than a Vengeance or a Doom, like you see a Reaper and it's like, oh, no problem, right?
Oh, you see a Doom in a push raid, and everyone's so jacked for DPS that that is the lowest HP thing in there.
Yeah. So I think that's something that I would like to see them figure out is how does this content be more challenging, maybe with some increase in hit points, at least for the mobs, not necessarily for the bosses, but not just they have more hit points and or they do more damage.
I kind of suspect that they're going to give us this lull, like, okay, things are a little bit on the easier side for now, but we're going to drive you into the dirt when Isle of Dread comes out and the level cap raises. It's just what I suspect. I could be wrong. I've been wrong
with that.
before.
I think you're on
Watch
the
it.
money there.
Hey, here's legendary content. Here's legendary ward back. It's like,
I mean, you think about when the level cap raised to 25, how hard epics were at first for us, and then when the game went legendary, a lot of the community struggled with legendary elites for a while. And I think, I suspect we're going to see a similar phenomenon when the level cap raises again.
Yep. Hopefully we'll see some stuff that's more tactical challenge based than damage and hit points. Because I've played that game in DDO and it's one of the reasons. It's one of the reasons why I never bought into Legendary Shroud as a great raid, is because the difficulty, the challenge there was don't get hit. And I didn't find that fun because I got hit a lot.
I do think you're on the money there with having a suite of Reapers that changes even seasonally, where you can have like these 2 3 months you have these Reapers, and then next season we'll have a different selection that you have to interact with tactically differently. That'll be fun, especially with the champs as well.
I would be fine. Like, I don't know if they can do it, but even if they just like, here's all the champs we've ever created at once, like, fine, right? Like, the champion suites that were on hardcore were great. They were fun. They were different. They shook things up, right? And I want more of that on live. And they put the one on live for like what, a week and a half, something like that.
The value to me of a rotating roster is if they're all on at the same time, at higher levels, you either don't bother learning what they are and you crunch through them, or you have to learn all of them by rote and know what all of them are. Whereas if you have a smaller pool that's seasonal, you have to learn a fresh thing. Learning a fresh thing is sort of more fun, and it's especially if it's a smaller batch, then it's feasible that you can learn that fresh thing. Whereas
True.
if it's a huge roster, you can't really learn that.
Or maybe you have to change your build a little bit, like do little
Yeah.
fine-tuning tweaks. Yeah, no, I think you're not wrong there. Yeah, so
Like it was meta defining for hardcore season 4 that they had those things that would just insta kill you with
Yeah.
the fear and the diseases and stuff. You had to build around that with your whole build, and I think that's cool.
it was fun. Not to mention the mimics, but I don't think we want mimics all the time, every time.
Is Voodoo DC'd or
No, he just took a bio break.
okay.
And let's see. All right, let's get in a little bit more to specific destinies. So again, we're not looking to do like hit necessarily every single one. But talk about some of the destinies, things that you like, maybe things you don't like. Epic strikes, moments, mantles, all that fun stuff.
This is going to be kind of now we're talking about specific destinies or destinies in general. I'd like to talk maybe a little bit about a systems issue here. I figured this is the correct place to do it. One of the things that I'm having some difficulty with, or I would like it to be easier, would be to know which are the epic strikes, which are the mantles. You know, if they could like put a little border around each of the powers that were, like different, like everything that's light blue, that's your epic strike. And anything that's purple, that's your mantle.
Yeah.
Or something with an orange, border might be the epic moment. It'd be nice to be able to pick these things out a little bit easier.
You want them to be formatted so that they catch your eye and
Yes.
say, yeah. No, I think it's great.
And they have that when you click over them, but you can't get that by glancing at the trees. You don't know where to look for that stuff, which is frustrating, I think.
They're not all in the
They're
same
not all
spot,
in the same
right?
spot. Yeah,
they're not. They're different. They're different spots.
Like, why?
Yeah, should be in the same spot. And I'm
Like
also going to say this. I don't like the fact that they share cooldowns. I don't like the fact that they have different cooldowns. If these are all supposed to be epic strikes and sort of be on par, why does this one have an 8-second cooldown and this one 2 or 1 or something? Like, I use this one over here, and now my 2-second cooldown one is on cooldown for 8 seconds because I used the one over there. I wish they did not share cooldowns. That really bothers me. It just makes me not want to take epic strikes out of other destinies because of that.
I do find that to be an interest. Like, I still have not, after 2 months of playing this, decided if I like that or I don't like that. Because part of me keeps going like, oh, so which of my epic strikes do I want to use? And having that be a strategic choice, I have enjoyed.
Yeah.
At the same time, I have been annoyed by, I just used this epic strike and I want to use this other one now, but I have to wait longer than that one would be on cooldown normally. Like playing that cooldown game is also a little annoying.
I think the thing that they're really trying to avoid is that you can't do things like, I want to use adrenaline, and then I'm going to smack the thing with Shadow Strike and benefit from both those things simultaneously. Because I think that would make some content that's already trivial more trivial, and that would be sad. But I do kind of agree with you. But I've been playing I've actually been playing with this. I've got a rogue that's been using the Fate Singer Epic Strike as well as the Shadow Dancer Epic Strike, and the Fate Singer one has a 4-second cooldown, and so there are instances where it's more beneficial to be using the Fate Singer one, and even if I can't proc Dark Imbuement, which is like the reason to use the Shadow Dancer one. So you do have to think about that tactically, and I think that's fun, even though it's annoying that you can't.
Okay, well here's let me share an alternative then. What if we had like, Martial, Caster, and we split up the epic strikes so that all Martial epic strikes share a cooldown. But like, for example, my healing pillar, that's an epic strike. That's one of my heals. Yet it goes on cooldown when I do some other epic strike. And I'm like, I don't want to put my heal on cooldown because I use this other epic strike.
Yeah.
Take rejuvenation
that's
cocoon
specifically
instead.
a really cool idea, actually, that you'd have Arkat, that your spears would again make sense, and that then you can have that difference. Because also, like, consecration is an epic strike. Like, come on, guys, I just want to use consecration for my team.
Yeah,
right?
that one's a weird epic strike to me. Why is Consecration an epic strike? That doesn't make it like that one has not ever made sense to me. And it might be the most egregious of them.
At
Like-
least strikey.
Yeah. Like it makes sense to me that the Dragon Breath is an epic strike. But the
Yeah.
Consecration Consecration is not, or is an epic strike, but the shield throw is not an epic strike.
I think Voodoo is really on the money with this idea of putting them back in the spheres and then having the
Sure.
that be with the cooldown parameter. That's really cool.
I think the other thing that you would probably need to do there is say that if you activate another epic strike, whatever lingering benefits from the one before go away.
No.
But
Dark Imbuement.
I know it has to be a little bit of cost, but I think that kind of gets around that Hunt's End adrenaline problem that you kind of mentioned too, though.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of that playing in there. But I do like the kind of format of the epic strikes and having them be kind of those in the mantles being kind of a focal point.
They're sort of a centerpiece for the identity of that tree, which is cool.
Mhm. I have just kind of the build that I'm playing the most, my Alchemist TR build. I have really enjoyed. I have Dragon Breath, and then I'm taking the Thorn tree in Primal Avatar. So I've been using the dot epic strike there. I tend to use that epic strike for bosses and the Dragon Breath for trash mobs. And I found that to be a nice 1-2 combination, like an alternative. So that's been really great in that vein.
One thing I like about the new Epic Destinies is I feel like I have access to a lot more healing spells. So like I'm playing a Shirati Magic Missile Spammer right now. And so I have 2 levels of Favorite Souls. So I have a Cure Light Wounds out of there. Now I've got 8 charges of Healing Spring, which is pretty cool. And then I've got Healing Pillar and the Mass Cure Moderate Wounds SLA out of Exalted Angel. So I got 4 heals on my Shirati Magic Missile Sork Spammer, which is pretty nice.
So here's one of the places that I haven't found that I enjoy the Destinies very much is the schizophrenia. We kind of talked about this a little bit before. Shadow Dancer and Shirati have not been super enjoyable for me in spending points. And you were talking about this earlier, Voodoo, about how you end up taking things like having to find things to take that don't really work for you. So that's been a little bit of annoying. On the same time, on the flip side, the alternative that I see as being Exalted Angel, where they have like choose one of the choose fire, healing, or light, and pick one of those 3. And that I find actually more annoying.
Well, but some of them give you like they just say like if this gives you this benefit to ranged attacks and it gives you this benefit to spells. So if they just give you both the benefits, that would be nice too on more of the things instead of making everything a multi-select. They just make sure they don't have something that just supports ranged or just supports casting in the Shirati tree, for example.
Yeah, I tried Shirati as a caster and just couldn't get into it relative to Primal. Like I just liked the Primal for what I was doing better. Partly because of Shardstorm, which is kind of sort of amazing. I really like Shardstorm, partly because it gives you a bunch of temporary hit points, which is great. So that's been kind of fun.
I think with the multi-selectors is a lot of those, especially in the Shirati tree, like it wouldn't hurt you. It wouldn't hurt the game balance to just give you both of those options in the multi-selector.
Yeah.
With a lot of those caster or range things, and that would like open up the window for like arcane archers and stuff to feel much more hybrid, which could be fun. But instead, like you don't actually. It's like it looks like it's going to be a hybrid tree, and then it isn't because you have to pick where. Like if it was giving you both the things, because they're in different veins, you still have to spec into those veins to make them work. So you're still diluting your build, but at least you wouldn't be like diluting too far, and you could actually feel like you had that functionality. So a lot of those multi-selectors could just be combined into one thing, and I think it would be fine.
I think in some ways the trees feel more versatile and less hybrid. Like you can pick one or the other in the trees, but it's not like you're really going to be building a Sharadi that's a ranged casty type. Like you're going to do one or the other generally. And I don't feel like either Sharadi or Exalted Angel really play into the hybridness as much as it's you can be, in Sharadi you can be either a really successful caster spammer or a range, or in Exalted Angel you could really go light or healing or fire crazy, but not like you could be light and fire and use some of both of them well.
Grandmaster of Flowers, you can't do. It doesn't pay to be any sort of castery type at all. I mean, it seems like Linabel just shoehorned some of the castery powers in there, just so that you could say, well, caster could go in there, find some benefit, but no caster is going into Grandmaster of Flowers and with any real number of points and for anything in there. That's just it shouldn't have even tried it should have just made it better for melee types and not even tried to do anything with caster levels in there.
Do you
I mean,
mean
it's
Shadow Dancer, or are you
just
specifically
awful.
talking about? Do you mean Shadow Dancer, or are you specifically talking about Grandmaster?
I'm talking about Grandmaster of Flowers.
Because there's
And
nothing.
Shadow Dancer, the same similar thing. I mean, they've got some castery stuff in there again, but
Well, I agree with you for Shadow Dancer, but Grandmaster is the monk tree. It's a melee tree in the martial sphere.
it is.
It having nothing. It has nothing for casters at all.
Oh,
And
okay.
it
Well,
doesn't need
maybe I was
to.
thinking Shadow Dancer then. Sorry. I mean, my monk. I haven't played my monk in a long time, so.
Like Grandmaster is one of my favorite trees, and I will get up on a hill and defend it.
Let's talk. We can talk about Grandmaster Flowers later.
I'm still not happy with the Grandmaster mantle as a monk. But,
I love it.
The Grandmaster mantle, I didn't like it at first, but the only thing I really do like about it is the extra speed. I mean, that's an extra 15% of speed in there that you can't get anywhere else, and it makes my monk running at like 200%. So he's pretty damn fast, and that's pretty darn cool.
Yeah. Yeah, we should say, like, there's 4 of us here, and there's 12 Destinies, and we've had them for 2 months, so we're not gonna be like experts on all of them yet. So feel free in the comments to say, hey, you're totally wrong, this is why this ability is really awesome, or hey, you didn't talk about this really amazing ability.
But yeah, VML's right. I made a mistake in talking about castery stuff. I meant I should have spoken about Shadow Dancer.
I'll say one ability I do like that hasn't been mentioned yet, and that's Phalites out of Sharadi. I think that's pretty cool. I throw that back to back with Greater Color Spray out of Fade Arc Illusionist, and it's pretty nice. It affects a great range of mobs that a lot of crowd control spells struggle with. It's pretty cool.
Awesome. I haven't heard or seen anyone using it. That's awesome. That's cool.
I mean, there's so much stuff to play with that it's kind of hard to figure out who's playing with what well, right? Like, it's gonna be another year. We're gonna be a year out, and someone's gonna pull this weird combination out of the thin air, like, and something's gonna be like the new meta of like a bunch of people are using this crazy thing that no one's considered yet. There's that much going on here. It's a big change of what's.
You're sitting there and you're feeling overwhelmed. Like, don't worry. Like, nobody's the expert yet, and there are going to be new combinations that are figured out over the course of the next year. So just have fun, learning the system, and don't stress. And things are going to evolve. We're learning together.
I will say structurally,
and-
like we've kind of touched, like the epic strikes. I'm really enjoying the mantles. I really like. I like how it kind of gates the. I do like how it kind of gates the feel of the trees. So, you know, it makes it balanced, right? Like you're not getting like too crazy from the different things. Having said that, some of that exclusivity is there are some places where it is not a great win for me. My healer tank is really feeling the lack of hit points from being able to get the hit points out of Unyielding Sentinel. Just because of how he's built, it doesn't really work. I would kind of like to see maybe the Exalted Angel tree get a little, like, not as big as this Unyielding Sentinel, but a small hit point boost. So that was kind of, that's one of the places where that exclusivity has kind of not been a win for me. I do like that everyone is not just using Dire Charge. I don't think I've really seen the alternatives. So, like, there's a kind of a CC-ish ability in Fury of the Wild. Grandmaster has some stuff. I haven't really seen those being utilized much. I don't know if that's because people are using them and they can't get them to land, or if they just aren't good.
I've been using Drifting Lotus a lot, and it is the best CC Epic Strike available by a long shot. It's really, really fun. It looks cool. It's fun to use, and it's very, very strong. And I was playing a wolf build with it when the Destinies dropped. And I would say it was maybe a little overtuned, if anything, but it was very, very fun. And it was much more fun than using Dire Charge into every pack.
That makes me happy because when I'm done with my current TR project, he's my monk, so I'll be into that tree more.
Grandmaster's really fun. There's some really cool stuff in there. And I think so. I've been playing a gold cursed dagger Shadar Kai chains thing for the last like month and a half, and that wouldn't have been a relevant thing to do really before because Dire Charge was so oppressive because we've had gold curse since update 50, and it, you know, some people were using it to CC Reapers, but that was kind of it. And now you have this AoE attack that can turn everything to gold, and that's a relevant thing to do because not everyone's dire charging straight in.
Yeah. How do people feel about the epic moments? I want to dial in on those a little bit. We've kind of talked about the strikes. Maybe we should talk about the mans a little bit more, but let's talk about the moments a little bit. Do you find that they live up to their billing as epic moments?
The only epic moment I have used is the one on a Sentinel. I love that it makes you big.
Oh yeah, that's very cool.
Deliciously flavorful.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm playing a Shirati cast right now. I didn't try the epic moment. I read it and I was like, that this doesn't sound interesting. So literally,
the caster one, I'm
only-
assuming you're talking about, because there's
Yeah.
two in that one, right? Yeah.
and I have literally only used the Sentinel epic moment.
I play a couple of different Shirati, and they're both ranged. One's bow, one's a dagger thrower. And Inexorable Advance is a very, very nice epic moment that I use often. And in fact, I'd like the Shirati tree overall very, very much, and I find it very useful, especially for my ranged builds.
But I think the thing,
Speaking of Shirati, I would like to mention a bug real quick I found out about it yesterday. So when you rest at a shrine, you're supposed to get the tea with the queen buff. I noticed that after a while, it just wasn't happening. If you turn off your mantle and turn it back on, it seems to kick it back in.
I have used the Thorn epic moment out of Primal Avatar and the one out of the moment out of Draconic Incarnation a bit. I think my issue with those two is that when I think of epic moment, right, it's usually what I'm thinking of is like, oh, here's a big fat boss I need to like the trash is dying so fast that I don't really think about using the epic moments for that. I use it more of like the big fights. And to be honest, neither one of them has really felt like it's impacting those moments very well. Because neither one really is giving me good boss DPS, particularly or doing much to a boss. I'm using the Draconic Incarnation one more now, just because of and really all I'm using it for is the spell cost reduction while it's active, so I can chuck more stuff at the boss faster. So I've had that as kind of like this weird. I think both would do well in like a trashy fight. The problem is I don't find the trashy fights to need an epic moment right now.
So I've played with the Grandmaster epic moments, tinkered with the Fate Singer ones, and Sentinel ones, and the Fury ones. What I'll say is Unbridled Fury basically feels the same as the old Unbridled Fury, and it's great. It was in a good spot then. It's in a better spot now. It's really fun getting that unconscious range. So that one feels epic. The Fate Singer and Grandmaster, though, are doing my favorite things, where you actually kind of have two epic moments. And they're a little less epic than our old epic moments, but you kind of get two. So like Grandmaster, you have everything is nothing, which was the old epic moment for that tree. You have everything is nothing, but also now you have Split the Soul. And Dark Monk Split the Soul is super cool for removing trash in really clutch situations, because you get that little banishing fist and you can hit extra targets, which on a monk is quite a big deal, because now you can get more of your CC off as well, and your Quivering Palms can hit multiple targets and all that sort of thing. So that's really cool. And also, Fate Singer is one of the cooler ones. Cut the Strings is disgusting and probably needs a bit of a nerf, actually, but it probably definitely needs a bit of a nerf. But it's really cool that you have this shorter, high impact epic moment as well as your more vanilla epic moment that's got that big party wide impact. So I like that version of it. And then you look at some of the other trees where their epic moment.
Before you get off of Turn the Tide, I want to,
Sure.
because it is one I've dabbled with a little bit. I like it. I think here's the place that it's a little weird for me. I don't really see a good feedback for how awesome it is, right? Like everyone's a lot better for the short period of time. But I don't see a lot of direct feedback that's happening. Which
like visual feedback?
I'm not sure how to. It's a little hard to even say, right? Like the other ones we've talked about, I know it's happening because hey, my numbers went up, or hey, I got really big and a lot of extra hit points. But that one, it's doing a lot for the entire party, right? Time Stop kind of also has this, but to a lesser extent, because when you use Time Stop, stuff just melts. A boss just melts under Time Stop. But I don't have that same experience with Turn the Tide. Does that make sense?
It does. I think that's a meta thing, though, and I think
it is.
As people figure out basically what it comes down to is that some of the top meta builds rely on spell power. Some of the top melee meta builds are relying on spell power, and that 100 spell power from Turn the Tide is not being leveraged as hard as it could be by the player base. And if you start looking at those imbue builds and dark imbuement and those sorts of things, you'll run into
Turn the Tide being more and more impactful. And I think currently it's just a party comp thing where people aren't building around having someone utilizing that
So-
epic moment.
I want to make a distinction here because I'm not sure I'm explaining it super well here. It's not that it's not being impactful. It's that I don't have there's not a feedback mechanism that's telling me and showing me its impact as clearly. The only thing I have to really go on of, hey, Turn the Tide is the red bars are going down faster. But that's kind of it. That makes sense.
Yeah, there's not even really a great visual cue for the fact that you've used it, other than the buff goes up.
But also, it doesn't compare it to Unyielding Sentinel, where I now have 10,000 temporary hit points, right? Or the Grandmaster one, like you're seeing you hits more hits, or I'm turning stuff to gold, assuming there's stuff to turn to gold, in the Draconic Incarnation one, or the Charm ones from Shirati. Even like the action boost one from Legendary Dreadnought, like I can see the difference in my numbers clear enough that it's there. It's not as big as some of the other ones, but like the Turn the Tide one, because it's impacting everyone, the impact to you is a little less relative to the other ones. So it's not having that same like, oh, I just used my epic moment and look at how epic it was. So.
Yeah. And we ran Too Hot last week on Elite. It was really noticeable because we failed the first time on our one because the lag got out of hand. But we also didn't run Turn the Tide, and it was really noticeable that difference of in the first phase having Turn the Tide and not having Turn the Tide. It was huge difference.
Yeah, like again, like, and I think that kind of gets to where like it's there, it's doing something. It's just hard to, unless you have that experience. I think it's harder to see it than some of the other ones.
I think it's hard to see it in your day-to-day questing. I think in raids it's more impactful because it's also doing more in a raid, right? Like
Sure,
more
yeah.
people are affected, so it's more valuable. But in a party, it's a bit meh.
Yeah. We didn't really talk too much about Time Stop. I mentioned it briefly. Like that one's pretty awesome. Like that one, I see. When someone's like, "Okay, Time Stop in 3, 2, 1." Yep, saw that.
Yeah, that's 6 seconds that it lasts. Does it last 6 seconds in Reaper as well, or does it get proportionally shorter period of time the more skulls you get?
The time is the same. It's also 10
Okay.
seconds. They upped it from Lamania, so it was 6 seconds, but it's 10 seconds now.
Okay.
Yeah, the helpless damage is what you really notice on that, though. Like you get everyone like, all right, I've got Time Stop in 3, 2, and everyone's like, all right, wind up, right? Like turn on all your boosts and everything, and it's that extra damage is a little crazy. It's actually one of the reasons why I was thinking that I wonder if turning down helpless damage in Reaper and higher skulls of Reaper makes sense, because you get so much more damage from helpless effects, and there's a lot of helpless effects, which is good. Like I like that it does that. I'm just wondering if it needs to get toned down a little bit in Reaper. But
I think in Reapers it's still fine. I think,
Yeah.
but it's the issue I have with Time Stop is that I don't really like the Magus tree. So Time Stop is cool, and then like the rest of the tree is a bit like what it can't quite decide what it's doing. Like it's a caster tree, but like you can't quite get where it's going, and I don't like it very much.
Do you think that the Magus tree is a little hard to figure because there's not really a build archetype that says like, oh, you should be in the Magus tree?
Exactly the problem.
That's kind of what I've saw it as the issue. Like pretty much every other tree I can see is like, oh, if you're playing this type of build, you should be in this tree. Oh, you're a bow user. You should be in Sharati. Oh, you're a tank. You should be an Unyielding Sentinel, right? Like all the other trees, it's really easy to see who's there. And I
Sort of
guess
like a
wizards, but
yeah, it's sort of like cold sorks and wizards can kind of go there, but if you're nuking, you kind of want to be in draconic
yeah,
as your main tree, and it doesn't feel like it has a
Pale Masters would want Magus of the Eclipse.
yes, but it's not
Yeah.
the Pale Master tree either, right? Like it's cold and negative energy. Like that's what's in the tree. So, and they've actually said that they want to do something that's more Pale Mastery, I think too. So, I mean, you're not wrong. Like if you're a Pale Master, that's the closest thing I can come up with. That why would you be in this tree? Oh, you're a Pale Master. It does negative energy damage. But it's
And
just
it gives
because
you necromancy DCs as well. I mean,
you can get those out of a lot of trees though.
What they really need it to do is that they need to implement proper necromancy in DDO so that those big negative energy circles, everything that you kill inside them gets resurrected. That's what needs to happen. And if it becomes a real necromancer tree, I'm there.
That would be very popular. Also, would probably break the game.
100% would break the game, but it would be super cool.
It would be cool. Do that. Make it so that when you animate your friend, they get more bonuses. That'd be kind of yeah. Anything else we want to say about some of the trees?
I'm ready for more trees to support the
Yeah.
the classes that have traditionally not had their own destinies:
Mhm.
warlocks, artificers, alchemists. I feel like I'm missing one, but
I mean,
yeah,
I feel
ready
pretty
for those.
supported as an alchemist, but I won't say no.
I think that the alchemist and artificer specifically really need trees that properly support their identity as you sort of a jack of all trades kind of thing, where it feels flavorful to those trees, where we sort of have some of these jack of all trades trees, but they're sort of off flavor for those build types.
We'll get it. Like Shadow Dancer is, again, going back to Shadow Dancer, it's that tree that it's a quote hybrid tree, but again, I find it more to be like a versatile tree, right? Like, yes, if you're an artificer and you're doing casting and crossbows or casting and a melee weapon or whatever, um, it sort of supports that, but I still find that tree to be less. You can do both casting and damage with those weapons, and more of a pick one or the other, and this tree will support either one. And maybe that's just my personal experience with it, but I haven't had it as a hybrid tree. I've had that experience as a versatile tree.
And that's kind of my gripe here, where like if you look at in Alchemist, like the Vile Chemistry lets you be a caster and lets you be a thrower, and if you want, lets you be a melee, and you can do all those things to a reasonable capacity on the same build, where instead of choosing to do one or the other, and it's not necessarily optimal to do it that way, but you can, and you're not throwing one by the wayside to do the other within the tree, where in Shadow Dancer either you get your damage or you go for your casting stuff, and it's a choice. You have to pick one.
Yeah. Let's see. Ready to move on to spells and sans items?
Sure.
Just had kind of a moment to talk about the quote new spells. Not that they're new spells, but they're new things in the game. But a lot of the spells that were higher up in the Destiny trees became spells to spellbooks. So Divine Wrath, Tsunami, that kind of stuff. Just want to give a brief moment to talk about that. If people really liked that change or hate that change, or just general thoughts about it.
Generally, I liked it, but I don't have much to say about it. I think it's cool. I'm glad they did it.
Are you using Tsunami more than you were?
No, I'm just using it just as much.
Yeah, okay.
I kind of with Tsunami specifically, I kind of liked it better as a twist because, I could use it when I was quelled, for example, when it was a twist, and now I can't, and it's on a
Oh.
longer cooldown now. So I preferred Tsunami before, but I'll take it.
Sure.
I think those changes are really cool. Specifically the favored soul ones. The divine cleric and favored soul ones. Just because, like, what's that one called? Is it Celestial Bombardment? Is the one with the old meteors?
I think
Yes.
so.
It's so cool, and no one ever got to use it because it was in a bad casting tree. And it's such a cool spell. You see that go off? It looks awesome.
It does.
I love it.
It's also, I think it's fair to say that Divine needed more level 9 spells. It was basically like pick all of them, right? Like, you weren't really making decisions there. So having
Especially on the cleric, you were just
Yeah.
you're just putting them all in.
Yeah, so like having a choice there, I think was kind of nice. Let's talk about the Sands items. We did get the legendary Sands items finally, and I don't know that I've seen like a huge amount of conversation about them, but they're pretty solid. So let's talk about some Sands items that maybe folks like. I'm sure Voodoo's just ready to jump on legendary Ring of Spell Storing.
Get out of my head. Yes. So mad props to SSG for making the Epic Ring of Spell Storing so easy to make now. It used to be one of the hardest things in the game to make. Now it's really easy. The hardest thing about it is getting the base item. Then you just need 50 pack ingredients. And you can make a legendary version too with like 100 pack ingredients and 5-star thingy dingies from Saltmarsh. And even though it's exclusive, the Epic Ring of Spell Storing is a different piece of gear than a legendary Ring of Spell Storing, so you can get them both. It's 3 charges on the Epic, 5 charges on the legendary. That's like 8 major mana pots per rest, and it's just delicious.
Does anyone else think it's really funny that they put a set bonus on there? Like, we were gonna wear
like
it.
anyone's hard wearing that item.
Yeah.
I wanted to like the Sirocco, legendary Sirocco. I really, really wanted the effects where it would knock you down and all that other stuff. I really want them to work, fairly often, and I'm just terribly disappointed they don't. And it's just, I guess I'm going to have to switch to different longswords, because I made 2 of them thinking that, it'd be more of a chance for that, those kinds of things to work, get the blind things or knock things down. And I am really, really just disappointed at the proc rate and the success rate. So I was disappointed there. I think probably the best thing that they did was the Bloodstone, and unfortunately, that you can make perfected. The perfected Bloodstone, I think is probably the best of the perfected items, at least as far as how I think about builds and what my builds are. But unfortunately, I haven't been able to squeeze it in on any of my builds. So I'm starting to think, oh, man, am I really gonna have to come up with a build that's built around a trinket? Um, you know, it's a really cool trinket, but you know, I think they could have been better.
I think the thing about the legendary Sands gear is we have to talk about an item from update 50, which is the Gem of Many Facets. And the Sands gear has made the Gem of Many Facets really fun. It's one of the coolest bits of gear in the game right now. You can kind of do whatever you want. You can squeeze things together. I know some people have been having a bit of heartache with the way that item rerolls. I know one guy who's rolled 68 times to get the specific set, and he still haven't found it. That's a lot of threads.
There's a lot of threads. Hey, but props to the devs for coming up with a mechanic for a thread sync.
Yeah, I guess so. But Sands gear is really cool. The Windlasher set's really fun. but a lot of the items don't feel like they're meant for anything, and that makes me a bit sad.
It was kind of my overarching thought as I was kind of perusing through them. One is I think that Legendary Sans gear is really suffering from an abundance of competing stuff. Because it's competing with Ravenloft, Sharn, Feywild, Saltmarsh, all of the other legendary Scroll Seal Shard stuff. There is so much gear here. Like, it's, at least for me personally, it got to the, even before we had Legendary Sand stuff, it was already to the point of, there's too much stuff for me to consider now. Like, it's too much stuff to try to figure out in Tetris. It's like, oh my gosh. Now, on the flip side of that, it's really easy to get a good gear set. Right? Like, the calculus to figure out the, quote, bestest gear set is challenging. But you have all those choices, so I think this stuff fits really well into those gear slots. I also like how a lot of the sets are 2-piece sets. I think they're actually all 2-piece sets, and there's multiple pieces to choose from.
Yes.
Which I think when you talk about fitting it into an ecosystem that you have Sharn and Ravenloft and Feywild, and I think to a lesser degree Saltmarsh, because I haven't seen anyone like really going crazy over the Saltmarsh set bonus and gear sets. But I think having all of that together and then having these like, oh, here's some nice 2-piece sets, I think actually works really well to have that. So, and as soon as I, have a character that I could, or another party that wants to burn through a bunch of Demon Queen raids, there's actually a set in here that I think would work well for one of the characters I have, and that fits in really nice. A little bit of a give and take, but I think I like it better. Just got to go run Demon Queen because one of them's a raid item. So
The gear right now is pretty wiggly, so you sort of have a slot or two on a lot of gear sets where you can just sort of get a bit more flavor, a bit more sort of juice in a particular direction out of your build. And I think that's really cool, and I think that those 2-piece sets really help you set that up where you can go, okay, well this slot wasn't looking that good, but now because I can make it part of that 2-piece set, now it's an interesting slot again. So that part of the Tetris is really fun, especially adding in the Gem of Many Facets to make that even more kick. Oh, it's very Tetris.
It is. Oh. All right. Anything else we want to talk about for update 52? 51. Before we talk about update 52. All right. So what we're going to do is, just for my own editing purposes, we're going to close this show. If you're listening live, we're still going to talk about update 52. It'll be coming up shortly. If you're not listening to this live, it'll be in the next show. So, Voodoo, plug your stuff.
Hey, you can find me live streaming on Twitch channel Vooduspyce every weekday. We do a morning show, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern. I also stream raids on Thursday night, and you can find me doing teaching raids on the DDO stream on the late morning, early afternoon on Saturdays. And you can also find over 1,000 DDO videos on my YouTube channel, quest walkthroughs, raid guides, crafting tutorials, and so much more.
Voodoo or Arkat, anything, VML or Arkat, anything you want to plug?
Now, I don't plug it, so none for me.
I generally don't have anything to plug, but I'm going to take the opportunity to plug the Jungles of Kyber Discord again and get anyone who's on Kyber to come join us on Jungles of Kyber. You can leave a link in the show notes.
Yep.
And I'll chuck a link back into chat in just a second.
Can you say what that is? Because, I have viewers from other servers, and, if I'd like to be able to tell Kyber viewers to be like, hey, there's this thing.
Sure. So it's a Discord server for the entirety of the Kaiba server, as long as you're respectful and polite. And that's where we host voice for our raids when we're doing pug raids, which we encourage people to just use it for that. And there's also advice channels if you want to talk about builds. There are build channels, and there's also a build depository where well thought out and well put together builds are posted in the build depository. So you can, if you're looking for something new, you can go in there and have a look around for something new to play.
Is that posted in the Kyber forums?
No, but that's a great idea. I'll do that.
Cool.
Should also send it to Cordovan for the quote
The
guild
Chronicle?
hall or something. Yeah, put it in the Chronicle. I think it might have been in there, but I don't remember. It's a community space. It's focused on Kyber on Discord, right? So if you're on Kyber and you're looking for more opportunities for community, that's a place that you can go. If you're not on Kyber, and there's also community available there. Think of it like there's a DDO Discord. This one is like that. It's just focused on Kyber instead of the whole game. That's the way to think about it. So.
There's actually already a post for it from Epic Soul. It's already posted for it in the Kyber forum.
Yeah. So thanks for listening to the show. Thanks to these three guys for joining me today, and all the contributors for DDOCast, and the Standing Stone Games, Wizards of the Coast, and the Cyberbears for hosting the podcast. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website at DDOcast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. If you have a DDO-themed webpage, or you Twitch DDO and you'd like to be featured on our website, email us at DDOcast@gmail.com. You can also hit us up at DDOcast.com for our show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, and other fun stuff. If you have a comment in this episode, a question you'd like to hear us answer, or a topic you'd like to hear us discuss, or you just want to say hi, leave a comment or email us at DDOcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter at DDOcast. That's the best place on social media to find us. So may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.